Hello, my friends. Well, apparently today is the International Day of Peace. So I started thinking about what I might be able to add to that conversation, and this is what I have to offer. We live in a world with the 24-hour news cycle that bombards us daily, repeatedly, with all of the violence that's happening around the world. I happen to live in a suburb of Chicago, so I hear every Monday, what's the body count? That's how the newscast starts. It starts with how many shootings were over the weekend, how many were wounded, how many were killed. Well, happy Monday morning to you too. On the national networks, you hear about the things that are happening in the Middle East, about ISIS, about kidnappings, about rapes, about murders. It's very difficult, or can be very difficult, to indulge the idea of peace, world peace, when this is the input you receive. So here's what I suggest. It's important to understand. Yeah, there's thunder and lightning, so the puppies are getting a little ramped up, so please bear with me. The violence in the world doesn't happen by itself. It isn't something that you catch. It isn't some external, infective source. Violence in the world begins with violence in the mind. And when you think about what violence in the mind is, it's all of those desires to see punishment, desires for revenge, for retribution. It's when you live your life in constant competition with a bad guy, with a villain, with an adversary. And the more you entertain thoughts like that, well, I'd like to see that person pay. Well, I hope that person gets what's coming to him. Thoughts like that, that's a violence in the mind that wishes to manifest violence in the world. And people who think like that don't realize it's what they're doing. In the moment, they're getting caught up in an emotion. And that emotion is turning into a desire for action. And that, my friends, that's the kind of mental poison that results in violence in the world. Plain and simple. So what do you do about that? Well, the first thing is always self-awareness. Be aware of when you have anger, which is a very natural emotion. Do you then channel that anger into a desire for violence? If you do, you can cut it off by simply saying to yourself, I choose to make it through my anger peacefully. I know it's a response to the moment. I know that it is very real and can be very powerful, but I know it's going to pass. And I simply need to be with that feeling and let it pass. I don't need to have a conversation about it. I don't need to translate it into action. I can simply acknowledge, wow, I got some anger about this. Let's take some time to process it, do some deep breaths. Let it naturally dissolve as you calm yourself. Just through the natural process of breathing and paying attention to your breathing. When you have fear, when you have sadness, sometimes there can be a conversation about the desire to punish whoever made you sad. Whether it's a person or an institution or a circumstance, the moment you determine that there's a villain that has done unto you, it's very common for that conversation to begin of, how do we achieve retribution or punishment? Those are the seeds of violence that this world can no longer afford. There are too many people who see villains in their lives and want to punish those villains. But the reality is this. We are surrounded by other people that are suffering in their own way, suffering the way we all do. And the best gift we can give to them is a wish that they find peace as well. So it's hard to find somebody that blew up a cafe and killed a bunch of people. It's hard to wish them well. And that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that through the compassion that you develop in your own understanding of how you create violence in your own mind and your own search for peace in response to that, you can look at somebody else who's doing very violent things and say to them, I wish you peace. I wish that you are able to discover the violence in your own mind that you are translating into violence in the world towards others. And I hope you find a way to peacefully move through those thoughts and the feelings that generate them, so that all that remains is for you to share that peace with the world. I think that's probably one of the most accessible ways for us to change the world around us and shift things away from violence and more towards peace. So choose peace for yourself. Choose to be in peace. Choose to share peace with others. And hopefully, if enough of us do it, things will change. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.